Hi everyone, today we are about to replace this bottom bracket together with a crankset. This is a Hollow Tech1 of Shimano. The hollowness cannot be seen from outside, but the axle inside is actually hollow where the crank screw onto. So we're gonna replace it with a new kit here. It is just brand new crankset and bottom bracket. Here's the bottom bracket. It's external bearing type and it's got spacers included. Hopefully we can position the chain rings closer to the frame so that we have a better chain line. Basically it means that the top gear, top sprocket of the cassette will be as much in line with the biggest chainring as possible, rather a little bit out. The sprocket should rather be a little bit outward towards the biggest chainring, so that there's as little cross training from on the chain as possible. The chain line is already a little bit outward from the chain rings. It means that if we use the bigger chain ring, the chain tends to run more outward towards the cassette, causing some cross training on the chain. It looks like we can move the chain rings slightly closer to the bottom bracket. Well, we'll have to see how the new crankset does. Let's look at it. This is the left crank. And the right crank part with the axle. It looks like bolts are included, and this one can accommodate a 104 BCD, this chainring and the middle chainring, as well as that little chainring right at the bottom closest to the frame. Tools needed: the crank removal tool. Just gonna screw it into the hub there once we remove the lock nut, and then just press the crank from the axis. And this is the bottom bracket removal tool. This is only needed to remove this old Hollow Tech1 bottom bracket, and the shifting spanner to use on this bottom bracket removal tool to remove the pedals, number 15 spanner, and a new tool to install the new bottom bracket, just to tighten it. And I suppose that is to tighten the left bolt of the left crank. And then just the standard socket set. I have to see if any other tools are needed, but so far it looks like these tools are needed. Okay, so let's go on to it. You start off by removing the pedals. Remember, the right pedal is a normal thread, right hand side, right thread. That's how you can remember it. Counterclockwise. Okay, pedals removed, and We needed a slightly bigger Allen key than from the socket set for the lock nut of the crank. Now the crank removal tool, just screw it right in where we removed the lock nut. First anti-clockwise to make sure the threads click in and we don't cross thread. Actually, you should make sure there's a lot of plenty of travel for the pusher. Okay, the threads took. Now we just have to screw it in. And make sure the push rod still has some plenty of space so it doesn't press on the axle yet. This actually only needs to be finger tight. Same size as for the pedals, slightly not too tight. And now we screw the push rod. Okay, a favorable position, a lot of leverage. Can just turn it tight and pushing the crank. This one is not so tight because it has been tightened untightened recently to inspect the bottom bracket. Okay, it's coming. You can just remove press tool. Crank. Just unhook the chain, the smallest chain ring, and put it aside. And we repeat the same procedure for the left side. Just prepare the push tool for the crank. Okay, and the left crank arm removed as well. You can just remove the crank puller. You can just untighten this fixing bolt if needed with the spanner. Has been done already. Spline type. Now with the the bottom bracket removal tool, this bolt attached here will actually screw into the bottom bracket axle, and it will just clamp this socket into the bottom bracket bolt. It's always playing tricks on them. Okay, seems like it's screwed all the way into the axle and this clamp. Now remember, this is a female thread, means it loosens clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Spraying some rust remover or some penetrating lubricant on the bolt of the bottom bracket can make things a little bit smoother. Okay, now we just have to wait some time for the lubricant to penetrate. Okay, and this is what actually loosened it. Finally loosened. And you can just remove the cartridge by hand. But we still have the left side bolt to loosen. You can see the Shimano ES51 Hollow Tech1. Okay, you can just unclamp our removal socket and repeat for the left side. And remember, for the left side the thread is normal again. It's the counterclockwise to loosen. And removing our clamp. Okay, silly. We still need the bottom bracket to clamp the socket on the left side as well, so I'll just and as you can see, it tightens counterclockwise. And you can see this clamp is actually very useful, actually essential, because the socket doesn't really get grip. It's a very shallow bolt. Okay, now to the left side. Again, tightened socket. Just hold that side and then tighten the clamp all the way until it's screwed in all the way into the bottom bracket axis. And we clamp our socket into the bottom bracket bolt. Hold the side and then clamp this side so that the spindle doesn't turn while you tighten. And as you untighten the bottom bracket bolt, make sure the clamp screw is not over tightened. It can get over tightened due to the bottom bracket bolt screwing towards the clamp bolt. So we'll just make sure it stays a little bit loose. Just finger tight all the time. There, it got tightened again. So we just back up a bit and then loosen the finger bolt a little bit again. And so we continue until the bottom bracket bolt is completely removed. And there we are, left side removed as well. Just with the socket stuck onto the screw. Okay, finally the left nut has been removed as well. And just having a closer look at the bottom bracket again, you can hear some rumbling there. And even some knocking. Oops. There's a little tightness there it seems like the inner race has been pitted. Maybe on both sides. There is some terrible pitting or rumbling, knocking there. So it definitely needs some replacement. So the next step would be to see how the new bottom bracket will fit and do some planning. As said before, I think it should be as close as possible to the frame on the right hand side, on the chainring side, so that the chainring is the chain is more in line with the cassette. So I won't bother starting with a spacer on the right side. Actually, there's already a spacer here from the derailleur. We're gonna keep the 3 chainring set. We're just gonna move the old chainrings to the new crank, and so this derailleur should stay. It's not gonna be a 1x9, but it'll stay a 3x9. You can see the mountings of the 104 and 96 BCD chain rings. Okay, until a little bit later. Here we can see the right hand side of the new bottom bracket is marked with an R, and it tightens in the counterclockwise position. So this should just slip in. Let's see if our new tool fits. Perfect. And the next step will be to transfer our chain rings to the new crank set. This, by the way, is 170mm, and the Shimano one was a 175. Okay, there's not much of a difference. I don't think you will realize it while pedaling. Okay, so let's loosen all the chain rings. I'll just use this Allen key because it's gonna be the quickest. Okay, one bolt is dropped. Okay, just screw them together to keep them paired. And with all bolts on the outer and the middle chainring removed, there goes our outer chainring. Okay, and the last other part of the bolt. Okay, it's center one. It should also be able to be removed. We could note which part is in line with the crank arm so that it matches the wear direction on the new crank arm. Don't know if that's critical, but we can play it safe and just mark it there to realize that this is the part that should be in line with the crank arm, with our new crank arm. And we can do the same with the little chainring. There you can actually see the notch in line with the crank arm, so we don't need to mark it. I'll just loosen the bolts diagonally. Now is a good time to know how many teeth you have on each chainring in case you want to upgrade one day. The new crankset came with its own new bolts, but that's only for the outer chainring. For the little chainring, we can just use the original bolts. They are still good. On the previous crank, there were washers just below the little chainring, so we'll just place them there and then bolt the chainring. Now, after all the washers have been placed below the chainring, we can insert the bolts. These washers might only be needed in case the surface of the crank arm is uneven, to press so that the chainring will press more firmly and evenly. And tightening the bolts evenly. So this crankset appears to not support this outer chainring. It appears to be only a 2-speed chainring type. As you can see, this outer chainring is not designed to be placed underneath this crank arm. The holes are sort of edged, and it can also not be placed on top. It just won't fit flush, and it will be way out of alignment. So it seems like we have to stick to a 2-speed, and that's not a real big issue. We can upgrade the chain rings. The little one is at 22 teeth. Maybe we can look for something like a 26. We can even go for a 32 and then just upgrade the cassette to a bigger 38 teeth lowest gear sprocket. Actually go from the outside inward. Or actually in this case on the new crank arm, okay, doesn't need to be inserted first, but it would be easier. Okay, looks like this is gonna be our 2-speed for now. I think this could be a 34 or a 32. And I think it's possible to upgrade it up to a 40, maybe 38 if not a 40. So that should still be quite nice. And we ended here with another problem. These collars will hit the bottom bracket, the external bearing, unless we shift the crank more outwards, which is totally unacceptable because the chain line will be way out, and there will also be the unwanted leverage on the bottom bracket, the leverage force due to pedaling. So we might have a few options here. We can replace it with this the center chainring, the former center chainring, make it a 1-speed in front, and just be happy with this 32 or 34 teeth. I think it's a 32. Or we can try use the original outer chainring, so 1-speed, put it the other way around, this way outside. This would only be for experimental purposes, to see how one speed with a 40 teeth chainring would feel like. Okay, so this side would then be outside. I think the chain will jump because the teeth are not designed to move in that direction, taking tension that direction, and the wear direction is also opposite, so I'm sure the chain will jump, but maybe we can just feel how it feels, take it for a test drive, and then choose a proper chain ring. Maybe look for the little chain ring without these notches, so that there can be enough space for the outer bearing of the bottom bracket. Okay, until later. And this looks like what's going to work out for the moment. 32 teeth. One speed, one chain ring, and it looks like we have a lot of space to upgrade. And now we're just screwing the other outer bearing. Again, the left crank arm just pushed in, and now just need to be tightened with the center bolt, and then with the oppositely placed side bolts. And by the way, this kit came with the tool to tighten the center bolt. It is made of plastic, and I'm sure it shouldn't be over tightened. Just finger tight. You just use this tool, and basically the center bolt will just push the crank arm inwards on the axis, and then the side bolts can be tightened. The side bolts will actually do the tightening work. It's very similar to the handlebar, the center bolt of the handlebar. First tighten the center bolt and then the side bolts. The center bolt just positions the handlebar stem to the axis. The 65